Dear friends, how are you? I'm your friend Ali Ahmed, and you are watching Civil Engineering Lecture Series. Today, we are going to discuss the chapter Building Materials and the topic Classification of Rocks. The classification of rocks. As we know that stones are obtained from the rocks, a rock forms portion of Earth's crust having no definite shape or chemical composition. It is usually a mixture of two or more minerals and it's not homogeneous. Rocks from which stones can be formed and can be made for building purposes are classified in following ways. The rocks are classified according to the geography, according to the physical look, according to chemical composition. So first we will discuss the geographical classification of rock. The geological classification of rock is the uh, classification depending upon how the rock was originally formed. So there are uh, three categories: igneous rocks, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. These three types of rocks are actually the geographical rocks, which means that these are uh, the rocks which are formed originally somewhere, so somewhere geographically. First we'll discuss the first category of the geographical classification, that's the igneous rocks. Dear friends, you can see in picture the igneous rocks. These all are the igneous rocks: andesite, basalt, diorite, gabbro, granite, obsidian, pegmatite, peridot, pumice, rhyolite, scoria, tuff. These are the igneous rocks. Actually, the igneous rocks are the primary rocks, also called unstratified or eruptive rocks. These are formed because of the formation of magma. What happens that inner layers of earth are at such high temperatures that masses of silicates melt. Then this molten mass known as magma is forced up. Magma solidifies into the rock when it reaches the surface of earth, and when it solidifies, when it reaches to the surface, it forms a rock that's called the basalt and traps. However, if the magma solidifies before reaching the surface of earth, it forms also a solid crystalline rocks. Those rocks are called the granite rocks. So what happens then, when the silicate melts at some depth of the earth, in the layers of earth crust, where the temperatures become high, so the silicates melt, and that melt mass is known as the magma, which is then forced up, and during coming out, or we call it during the eruption. What happens that some mass actually melts at the surface, and some melts during coming out, but does not reach the surface. So those stones formed due to the melting of magma at the surface are called these basalts, and those formed before reaching the surface are called the granite rocks. That's all about igneous rocks. Second classification category of geographical classification is the sedimentary rocks. The sedimentary rocks is also called aqueous or stratified rocks, and these are when the surface of earth is subjected to destructive action of rain, frost, winds, and chemical actions. These destructive agents break up the surface of earth, which gets further broken up when carried down by rains and rivers. And the journey of river from mountains to sea, the velocity goes on decreasing as the river moves further. As the velocity of river decreases, so it goes on depositing the debris carried out by the river or by the water. It is very common that the heavier ones being the first to be deposited, following the deposit of smaller and finer ones. So sand and silt get deposited in voids of deposited debris, and the latter having the binding properties. Due to latter means that the silt. Okay. Due to the seasonal varieties of materials are deposited in layers. The deposit layers continues for millions of years. It is not the formation of sedimentary rock is not in just days or months. It takes years. The process and the deposition of the or sediments takes years to form a rock. These are the factors we have discussed for the sedimentary rocks, and we have discussed what happens. What's the procedure of the formation of the sedimentary rocks? Well, that takes years, and it is subjected to enormous pressure of overlaying layers. When one layer is formed by sedimenting a few of the sediments, okay, when the few sediments are deposited, one layer is formed, and then then comes another layer, and the sediments of different sizes and different weight. You know that the heavier settles first, the larger settles first, the smaller lighter one settles then. Though so the layers are formed, the heavier are down, smaller are on them, and then this keeps on going, and this takes time. Layers to layers are formed, so these layers have a pressure on the on other layers, like the upper layer has the pressure on the lower layer. So these forces, actually these forces of the layers consolidate the sediments and form a stratified and sedimentary or aqueous rocks. So sandstones and the limestones belongs to this class. Sedimentary rocks are often well stratified and show well defined bedding plans. Stratified rocks are those which show definite bedding plans, so we call them stratified. These rocks can be split and cleared easily both in bedding direction and normal to the bedding planes, giving building blocks of fairly regular shapes. Properties of sedimentary rocks vary considerably depending upon the nature of sediment and the type of bonding that exists between the adjacent layers of the sediment grains. Sandstone formed by consolidation of sand deposits consisting of primarily of small rounded grain of silica. Sandstone will be relatively soft or hard depending upon the nature of building materials. That's all about sedimentary rocks. We have sedimentary rocks in our picture. You can see that the conglomerate, breccia, sandstone, shale, mudstone, and you have the rock salt, and these all, and the chert. These all are, and absolutely the limestone. These all are the sedimentary rocks. I hope that you would have got the idea about it. We go for the third category of the geographical classification, that is the metamorphic rocks. These you can see in picture. We are going to discuss it. The metamorphic rocks are due to structural changes in earth. The igneous or the sedimentary rocks rocks find their way deep in earth where they are subject to high temperatures. Means the metamorphic rocks can be igneous and metamorphic rocks can be sedimentary, and when they are subject to high temperatures and heavy pressure, these 2 points should be kept in mind. This is the difference between these three. The When the igneous or the sedimentary rocks are at some depth, and there they are subject to the high temperatures and the heavy pressures, then what happens, these high temperature and heavy pressure cause changes in texture or in mineral composition, or in both, like texture and the mineral composition, and form a new type of rocks. That rock is metamorphic rock. There are some of the changes to the metamorphic rocks, that is the granite. When subjected to high temperature and heavy pressure, granite changes to gneiss. As we know that granite is igneous rock, and it changes to gneiss, which is the metamorphic rock. And sand changes to the sand changes to the quartzite. And we know that the sandstone is the sedimentary rock, and sandstone, when subjected to this, it changes to the quartzite, and quartzite is metamorphic rock. And when limestone is subjected to this uh, situation, it changes to the marble, and we know that the limestone is sedimentary rock, and it changes to the marble, which is the metamorphic rock. And shale, which is also sedimentary, changes to slate. So this was all about the metamorphic, and these metamorphic is category of the geographical classification. So we have done the geographical classification, and we have given you a very important and very that brief knowledge about this. And now we are going to discuss the physical classification of rock. This is the when the rock is physically classified, or the physical rocks are classified are in two categories: stratified rocks and unstratified rocks. So the stratified rocks actually show the distinct layers along which it can be easily split into two slabs. These are the stratified rocks, which are we call the physical classified rocks. Slate is stratified, sandstone, limestone. These three are, there are many, but these are three important stones which are mostly used and very commonly available and used. The slate, sandstone, and limestone are the stratified rocks. Stratified rocks actually show the layers, distinct layers, while unstratified rocks, this is other one, that is these are the stratified rocks. You can see there: slate, limestone, sandstone. And you can see in another picture how the layers are being distinct. You can see clearly. This is the unstratified rock. Unstratified rock do not show sign of stratification and cannot be split easily into thin layers along the layers. It cannot be split. So these are the unstratified rocks, and you have there the unstratified rocks: granite, trap rock, quartzite, basalt. These are actually the unstratified rocks. You can see in the picture very clearly, and you can understand it. The all sedimentary rocks are essentially stratified, whereas all igneous rocks are unstratified. That's the a clear uh, about the sediment, the stratified and unstratified rocks. Because they said in sedimentary rocks, what happens that the layers are formed. We have discussed in detail that formation of sedimentary rocks, the layers are formed So these layers are formed in sedimentary rocks. That's why these all sedimentary rocks are stratified rocks. While in unstratified rocks, there is no distinct layer at all. So all the igneous rocks are unstratified rocks. This was important point. And the metamorphic rocks may either be stratified or unstratified, depending upon the type of rock that has undergone transformation. Like if the sedimentary rocks go to the undergo the transformation, then there those metamorphic rocks formed from the sedimentary rocks will be stratified. And if the igneous rocks gone under are undergone the transformation and are now metamorphic rocks, then those metamorphic rocks are called the unstratified rock. That's very clear from this. And uh, then comes the chemical classification. From the name you can understand this. There's the game of chemicals. There are three chemical compositions, classifications, and the argillaceous rocks, siliceous rocks, and calcareous rocks. These are three categories of the chemical classifications. Actually, the chemical uh, classification is classified according to chief constituent mineral, and in these three categories the chief constituent mineral is different, and they are named after the chief constituent mineral. As the you can see in picture, argillaceous rocks. We know that in argillaceous rocks, the principal constituent is clay, that's the aluminium. And the argillaceous rocks are the slate and the laterite. Then the siliceous rock, you can see in the picture, that's the siliceous rock. And in the siliceous rock, the chief constituent mineral is sand, that's a silica. And we have siliceous rocks like quartzite and granite. In quartzite and granite, there is silica in them. Then the calcareous, which is the uh, uh, which is, in which the chief constituent is lime, and the formed rocks are limestone and marble. These two are actually the calcareous. Calcareous is calcium carbonate. Actually, it is the calcium carbonate, which is actually the lime. So this was all about the chemical classification. These are the actually rocks, calcareous rocks, calcium carbonate rocks. See, these were siliceous, and you can see in the picture calcareous rocks. Marble is there, limestone there. You can see them in very clear way. So I hope that you have got everything I tried to teach you, to give you some information and some touch about it. And I hope you will subscribe to my channel, and you'll click to the bell icon so that you can get the latest videos about other topics of other uh, subjects of civil engineering. And I'm very thankful to you for watching my video. Thank you very much.